I would like to open up with a little disclaimer that my board asked me to read before I make statements on behalf of the organization. As the chairman, the policies and ideas being proposed tonight do not represent the official position of Colorado Hispanic Republicans. They are preliminary ideas which need to be refined and voted upon by the CHR Board of Governors. We do encourage rational discussions among the voting public that helps foster ideas that our elected officials can take and formulate into workable legislation for the purpose of reforming our current immigration laws. We take the position that our system is not broken, but rather outdated and in need of reform to deal with 21st century needs for the United States. There is no quick fix to this massive problem. However, we stand firmly on the position that nothing can be reformed until such time that border security is placed firmly at the top of any reform list. Hispanics who are citizens overwhelmingly support border security first and foremost. In addition, it is our position that our own government has been complicit in creating the immigration problem and needs to be held accountable for its failure to enforce current laws and, in fact, creating an environment of lawlessness among immigrants who wish to enter the United States. I'd like to touch on a few points that we've been discussing. By no means is it the final solution, but we are definitely looking at all aspects of this. Linda and I agree on market-based approach. I can agree with Isabel's plea for compassion and being open to people who want to immigrate here. However, there is a staple here that we often ignore, and that is that we are a nation of laws, in that as the United States of America, we are a sovereign country, and we are entitled to control our immigration. So, first of all, we want to find a workable solution to secure the border. It can include a wall if deemed necessary. We're not saying we support that, we're just saying if that's what it comes to, then so be it. Number two, we can identify the estimated 11.5 million illegal immigrants in the country now, categorized by visa overstays and those crossing the border from the north and the south. 3, illegal immigrants with proven criminal backgrounds should be deported immediately once identified. A new law calling for a mandatory 5 or 10-year prison sentence for anyone re-entering the country after being officially deported should be established. This would serve as a deterrent and greatly reduce those who would attempt to re-enter after deportation. Number 4, in addition to that, we basically just have a revolving door policy right now. People get deported and they're back here in 2 or 3 months, and that's just not sustainable. Number 4, establish a temporary legal status for those who voluntarily identify themselves to our system. Those who do not self-identify, once they are identified, will be placed in a separate, less advantageous category who would be subject to deportation proceedings after a hearing. Number 5, all illegal immigrants would be subject to an employment and tax audit to determine if back taxes are owed. Personally, I don't believe that's the case. Most illegal immigrants that are here, most of them are paying taxes. A lot of them may be working under the table, so to speak, but a lot of them do pay their taxes. Employers are, I think, the biggest culprit. Employers who violate U.S. employment laws by hiring undocumented workers should be subject to fines and penalties, and in extreme cases, possibly prison sentences. If the jobs weren't here, the people wouldn't be coming. Number 7, illegal immigrants who are granted a temporary work permit would be categorized by skills and education to determine what immigration category they should fall into. If they pass background checks for which they would have to pay, they would be eligible for a longer-term work permit and/or permanent residence status. 8, a separate designation would be set for those immigrants who entered the country illegally from those who entered through the legal process for the purpose of applying for citizenship. In other words, they need to go to the back of the line because it's not fair to those who have been in the system for years and paid a lot of money to immigrate, and someone is going to be allowed to be a citizen in front of them. I have relatives that fall into that category, and I'm not happy with that. Nine, no immigrant entering the U.S. illegally would have an automatic path to citizenship and would have to wait a minimum of 15 years before they were able to apply for citizenship, maintaining a clean work and criminal record during that time. Number 10, by law, no immigrant entering the U.S. illegally would be eligible for any state or federal welfare or social benefits. We all know that that's not supposed to be the case. Some are doing it, a lot are not. But the government agencies who manage these benefits are the ones that are tasked with verifying a person's citizenship and eligibility before they're giving benefits out. If it's discovered that an illegal immigrant has previously been receiving any welfare benefits through fraudulent actions such as false IDs and other acts, that person would be reclassified and subject to repay those benefits. And finally, the enforcement of immigration laws is paramount to any reform enacted. We currently have laws that are not enforced. Sanctuary cities should not be tolerated, and any government official, state, federal, or local who refuses to enforce U.S. immigration laws should be subject to prosecution. There are several key issues that we're dealing with right now, and Jeff illuminated a couple of them. For example, the refugee status. We look at refugees and illegal immigrants in two different categories. A refugee is not an illegal immigrant. If, as a country, we decide that we're going to allow refugees into the country for whatever humanitarian reason we have, then that needs to be a process that is governed by the people, not by one person in the White House. National security is paramount in these times. We are not living in the same times as 100 years ago, when people immigrated here and there was plenty of room and plenty of opportunities here. We now have, as we know, terrorists who mean us no goodwill trying to enter the country through the southern border and some through the northern border, and frankly, some through the visa system as well. So we have to be cognizant of that when we're formulating our policies. Assimilation, to me, is important because when we came to the U.S., first thing my parents taught me was, you go out and learn English. We spoke Spanish at home, but outside the home, I was speaking English. Within 6 months, I was fairly fluent in the language. So I'm not a proponent of bilingual education. I think that's detrimental to the child because children learn languages very easily. So being bilingual is a benefit, not a detriment. As far as the effect on families, yes, we have a system where families, immediate families, can request members of their family to immigrate here. That's one process, but beyond that, whether it's a parent and a child or a child and a parent, siblings don't fall into that same category. So a sibling is like fourth or fifth down the line in the categories for immigration. So it's much more difficult to have a brother or a sister to come to the United States. And then finally, the issue of mass deportation. We believe that's untenable, not going to happen, so I think we should waste no further time talking about that, except in the sense that we need to decide what we're going to do with the problem as a nation and have leaders who are willing to stand up and follow the law and come to workable solutions and not just pander to certain people. So that's our position.